I'm anxious to get all these stockings sewn up. So I'll show you the basis of the lace and how it starts. Okay, I'm ready to continue on with the lace. And what I've done is my cast on row, and then my instructions told me to do 2 base rows and then prepare to start moving my stitches for the lace work. Lace work is usually worked off a chart, and the chart is something like this. I'm hoping my camera can focus in on this for you. And you need to learn how to read the symbols. The symbols are what are your clues on what to do, when, and which direction. This particular pattern has stitches moving from the right and the left to a center, what I call post, and they continue to form the pattern. And with this, because of the way the stitches move in together, it will pull up the knitting and create like a scallop. It's a very simple pattern, straightforward. Once you get your base row done, you can go from there. A big thing in lace work is your transfer tools. The transfer tools can make it so much easier, because with lace work it's not hard, but you do need to pay attention, and you need to, if possible, have some undistracted time, because just getting off one stitch can ruin a whole beautiful motif that you've worked really hard on. This particular pattern starts out with a row where I'm moving 6 stitches, a 6-stitch section over by 1 stitch, doubling it up on this center post. I'm going to do it from both ways and work my way across. I have 2 stitches in between each grouping. It's not difficult to do. I start with the stitches closest to the center post that I'm going to work with, and I've pulled that center post out so it's a little easier for me to see, since I'm trying to talk and work at the same time. Sometimes getting the tool back on the latches takes a little bit more work. I like to, if at all possible, have those latches open and ready to receive my stitches. I'll take my next 3. Trying to keep my arm out of the way for you. I'm sorry if it's getting in your way. Get them on the needles and pull. Now I've left a needle empty here, and that needs to be open in working position to pick up the yarn that's going to come across when I knit this row. Again, I'm moving over the 3 closest stitches on this side of the pattern. I'm going to bring in these guys and pop them on if I can get everybody to cooperate. Alright, I've got 3 more to move over in my section of 6. And put them on. It seems to help if I hold my finger underneath and flip up my latch tool. Here again I have my empty needle, latch open, in position. My pattern leaves those 2 alone. I'm always going to move these stitches first that are closest to that center bar. I'm making this look more awkward than it really is. I'm sorry. It's hard to do and keep my arm down. Usually I have my arm sitting up on the frame. Gives me a little balance. Makes it much quicker to pop them on and pop them off. Tool seems to be a bit stubborn tonight too. I would definitely suggest, if you're new to lace, that you find a very simple pattern, work with some eyelets first, and go from there. Don't do anything so terribly intricate that you really burn yourself out the first time out. I haven't done a lot of lace work, but I do enjoy it. I made the mistake, my first project that I did any kind of lace work was an Afghan. Luckily it was only every other section that had the panels with the lace work. But it was a chore, and I did make mistakes. And one more section. 3. They're up. My needle. Oh, forgot to put this one. And we're ready to come across. I like to double check. Everything looks good and looks the way the pattern suggested. I'll knit across, and that gives me another opportunity to check. My opportunity to check comes from the floats that develop from having the needles in that position when I knit across. I know that that's the way my open needles are depicted on the pattern, so I look like I'm doing okay. I'm going to knit across and turn those into actually knitted stitches. My pattern's getting in the way. Okay, as you can see, we have eyelet holes now. As I said, this is the basis for the pattern. These pyramid, my eyelets will pyramid up on both sides. So I know that I'm going to need to come in the next section over. Here is my center post. That's going to help me. As I did before, I'm just going to kind of bump these latches open by moving my needles just slightly ever so forward, giving me an easier way to work. Since everything's coming over to the center post, I'm going to start right next to it again. Pick the stitches up, move them over, and hope they behave a little bit better this time. Okay, 3. Now the first row was 6, this time it's only 5. So I'm going to flip over my transfer tool to the number 2 and continue to do that across. 3, up, over, come up, flip over my tool for my number 2, and do this across. See, it's really easy. Again, I've got these 2 empty needles that I need to make sure that they're open. Did you know that if you just tap on the bottom of your needle, that if you have a good free latch, that latch will automatically open up? You don't have to flip them every time. I thought that was just one really neat little trick. Again, I'm going to come over, find where that center bar is that I'm working towards. I like these lace patterns that are repetitive like this, that don't really require me to think a lot once I get that initial row started. Makes it a lot easier for me. I found out I don't like to do lace if I've had a bad day and all I want to do is knit, because it can sure ruin a little bit of free time in a hurry, because inevitably I don't pay enough attention to my chart and I make a mistake and then I have to rip it back and I feel like I've wasted my knitting time. I'm going to leave the tape running while I do this one more time, and then we'll turn it off and I'll complete the pattern so that you can see it. Learning to work with your transfer tools is a must if you're going to work with lace work. I'm double checking again, seeing if my eyelets are in the area I want them in. Knit across, look at my floats. Oops, I dropped one down here. That's alright, I can use my tool to pick it up. This one too, I must not have had my latches open. The thing that you'll find is that where your out of work needles are that create the floats will make a difference in how big the hole is. To me, when these needles are left in forward position, all the way forward holding, the float is actually smaller than if the needle is in working position. And I think it's about the same if it's all the way in the back non-working position. I'm going to lift that up and put it in the hook where it should be. And we'll knit across. I always like to pull down and give my knitting that set, especially since I'm creating all these eyelets. I'll do a little bit more and then let you see where it leaves me. Here is the next succession completed. You can see my stair steps are forming nicely. The next step up is completed. 2 more and this particular pattern will be complete. And another. 1 more to go. And it's complete. I've just added a few rows of straight stitch across the top to accentuate that indeed we are done. If I let up on the hem, I'm hoping you can see here how this pattern will scallop. It's very pretty. And this turned out nicely. I'd just like to remind you again with lace to take your time, double check, take that extra step after making your first pass to make sure that your yarn floats are where they should be to create your holes. If they aren't there, it's easier to take them out at that time than to find your mistake later. And I mean, we all make mistakes. If you have to rip it out, you'll probably be happier. There's sometimes you can't even tell, so that's totally up to you. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I wish you well on your new projects. My family said, maybe you might like to know who I am besides just seeing my hands. Thanks a lot for letting me share a few of these things with you. And I hope you enjoy knitting on your Bond or Knit Smart or whatever it is as much as I do. Thanks a lot and happy knitting.